Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Aoife Keane. I'm the Customer Marketing Specialist here at Visible Thread. I'm joined by Kyle Peterson, VP of Customer Success. Kyle is going to be going through how to use Compare Docs and Compare Excel in VT Docs to maximize efficiency today. This session is being recorded, so both the slides and the recordings will be emailed out after the webinar. Throughout this webinar, though, please do feel free to ask us any questions in the Ask Question box there on your dashboard, and do engage with us in the attendee chat. We will get back to any questions at the end. Before we begin, though, I would like to bring your attention to some upcoming events and resources that we believe you will get value from. Later this week, Friday, December 15th, I will be hosting a webinar alongside our CEO of Visible Thread, Fergal McGovern, and he will be giving you a deep dive into the new VT Docs 6.0 release. So definitely there's still time to register for that. Next week, we have our final webinar of the year, Reflect and Project, with a panel discussion from seasoned professionals on the best strategies for effective proposal management. And then looking forward into 2024, we have two events so far. We have our next training webinar that will dive into dictionaries in VT Docs 6.0. And then last but in no way least, we have our super exciting event that will take place in February, Optimize 24 AI. It's our virtual event where the future of proposal management meets with the power of artificial intelligence. So that's not to be missed. If you're interested in any of these free webinars, you can click on the link in the console below to register today. Great. So in other great news, we're delighted to present the Optimize podcast. This podcast is where the world of government contracting comes alive. This series of episodes is hosted by Tom Wilson, President of Intellect, and our founder episodes are hosted by Visible Thread's CEO, Fergal McGovern. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other major podcast platforms. And finally, another great resource that cannot not be mentioned on a training webinar is VT University. It's our free online learning platform with courses that provide you with step-by-step guidance to master our solutions in no time. And as I said earlier, you'll be able to access these events and resources that I mentioned now in the related free content tab on the webinar console. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Kyle, who will run through all things Compare Docs and Compare Excel. We have some poll questions for you to kick it all off, and you'll be able to click on the slides on the console to submit your answers. So over to you, Kyle.
Thanks, Aoife. Hi, everyone. Sorry that I'm not on camera today. I'm locked in combat with CenturyLink. So my apologies. As long as you can hear me clearly, that's always the goal here. So for those who've attended these webinars before, we just start with a couple of contextual questions. I just want to understand who's in the room, what exposure people had to the comparison feature within VT Docs or not. Either answer's fine. To Aoife's point, you can click literally right on the yes or on the no to answer the question. I'll just let a couple more responses roll in and we'll move in or move on. Thanks all for who've answered so far. All right, let's see where we're at. Okay, and this is generally about, 1/3, a quarter. Our existing users, always great to introduce this to people before. That's why we have these webinars. Now, for those who haven't used Compare, and I guess even if you have, this is probably still a valid question. What kinds of documents are we reviewing where changes are important, right? RFP revisions, SAL revisions, proposal drafts. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. There are plenty of other examples, but we just threw these in here. A lot of our user groups are running the doc compare on these types of documents or these examples. Are customers making changes to requirements? Whether it's in terms of delivery, whether it's, instructions. And once again, as always, you can click right on the slide in terms of A, B, or C. Maybe next time we could have done an all of the above, but like I said, this is a good representative sample, but it's not exhaustive. Excellent, thank you. So good to see a selection in each. Looks like RFP revisions, it would be the most common. And you could argue that a SAL would be baked into that. Excellent. Thank you. Very helpful. And I believe the last one. We also have a comparison tool in VT Docs that handles Excel spreadsheets. So Docs, as the name hopefully implies, looks at PDF docs, Microsoft Word docs. Compare Excel does just that. It compares Excel spreadsheets. So just curious who in the room has used that feature. I'm imagining it would mirror what we saw earlier, about 22%, 70% no, although I have noticed Compare Excel is lesser utilized than Docs in my experience. Yes, so my instincts are correct. Aids this year is to drive Compare Excel usage. So thank you so much, guys. I'm a terrible liar. One last question. So for those who haven't used Compare Excel, once again, what kinds of examples or document types would you be grappling with here? You know, are you frequently bumping up pricing tables against one another? Maybe, you know, one Excel doc on one screen, one on another, going left to right, you know, qualification or capability tables for more of an RFP or proposal response example. Then bills of materials, BOMs. If I have any supply chain heroes in the room, program management would have a vested interest in this as well, frequently in Excel format. Excellent. Okay. I was curious about BOMs, but pricing tables is the big hitter, but we've got answers in each column. Excellent. Thanks so much for responding to all who did. This is really helpful in centering the discussion as well as driving future content. We want to make sure that what we're presenting is relevant, compelling, and actionable. So thank you. And this is all part of that. Okay, let's talk about it. We're going to get into VT Docs here in short order. What are we going to talk about today? This is pretty straightforward, kind of a pre-Christmas palate cleanser. We're going to talk about Compare Docs to handle amendments or revisions to docs. And gosh darn it, we're also going to compare Excel workbooks. You can do both within VT Docs, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now. As always, please utilize that Q&A box. If you have any questions, drop those into the Q&A. I'll get through as many as I can at the end of the session. Okay, so Aoife, I'm going to share my screen, and so in just a moment here, we should be seeing my VT Docs environment. So I'm in Visible Thread. Just quickly, for those who haven't used it before, or this is brand new, I'm in my own workspace. I have uploaded into Visible Thread, in this case, a variety of PDF and Excel documents into a folder. And the folder is just your standard unit of measure within VT Docs. That's where we're storing and organizing the documents that we're analyzing. So with documents in a folder, we see kind of a variety of hotkeys here that we can apply against these documents. Let's start with Compare Docs. We'll move left to right. I'm going to go through two examples of each, and they're two different document types. So my first example, I'm actually going to start with this PEO draft doc. This is an RFP, and it's a draft. Well, our customer has now dropped a final version on us. This is over 100 pages. Let's quickly identify what's changed. What's material? What requires action? I select the two documents that I'm looking to compare. The draft is the baseline, the final is the latest, and I simply click Compare. So in just a moment here, we receive an Excel output. This is important. We're outside of Visible Thread. We're in Microsoft Excel. I can save this. I can email it. I can drop it into SharePoint. But column B, this is that draft. My RFP draft, word for word, line for line. Column E is that latest revision, word for word, line for line. We can see the documents are lined up in this left to right orientation. And then column C right down the middle, this is letting us know what's changed, what's stayed the same, what's been added, what's been deleted. Anything in blue has stayed the same. Anything in red has been changed. So we don't merge things together. We don't call out, basic things like, well, this was bolded before and it's not bolded now. We're purely focused on the content. And this puts us in an action-oriented posture to determine what's changed and what do I need to do with it. Only show me what's changed, left to right. It's a very easy kind of shareable format. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is also a differentiator out there, is because it's Excel, we can filter. I don't need to scroll through the entire document if I don't want to. I can drop a filter here into column C. And let's just say, you know what? I'm only focused on what's changed. And this is a great way to see quite quickly what's been added. In this case, an IDIQ min and max. That's pretty darn helpful. So it's a great way to slice and dice the document. Maybe I only want to go down to what's been modified. I can do the same thing. So we still want people reading and understanding what their customers are presenting to them, but this makes our life a lot easier. And as we can see, it's 2 clicks. We just want to get the two documents into a folder. You click compare docs. It's as easy as that. Contracts manager, so I can't help myself. Let's go through a contracts example. These corp docs, I stole these off of Lockheed Martin's website for their supply chain. These are basic terms and condition sets. And I want to see what's changed from their 2019 boilerplate to their 2021 boilerplate, for instance. We can do that. I'm going to compare the 2019 version against the 2021 version, and I click compare. A classic use case. If we need to renegotiate, let's just focus on the clauses that have actually changed. If the clauses haven't changed, maybe we can just maintain the precedent, what we've already agreed upon, for instance. And we see, 2019 has become 2021. That's pretty simple. So, mainly cosmetic change language. That's important. But same left to right format. And it can be just as powerful to know what hasn't changed as what has. Excellent. Okay, so one more thing on doc compare, and let's talk about Excel. In this case, I've compared PDFs. You can do the same thing with Word docs. I just recommend that you keep the docs like for like. I want to compare a PDF to a Word file. Cool. So let's talk compare Excel. Same idea. I have differing versions or revisions of spreadsheets in my folder, and I want to compare them. Now, I'm going to actually show you guys just briefly what these documents look like. I think for Excel, that's important just to wrap our head around. This is a pricing worksheet. And so I'll just draw your attention here. We see multiple tabs along the bottom. It's not just one tab. In this case, we have a fee element table, a base year, an option year, etc. But then if we go into more of our CLIN tabs here, I'm seeing lots of lines, site names, places of performance with various cost elements, 93 lines on this tab alone. We have another tab, another 93 lines. My goodness, what if someone makes a change, add something to that file? Can we quickly highlight it? So we don't have to look at 2 spreadsheets lined up side by side. Absolutely. I've got version 1 and the final uploaded into a folder. I simply click compare Excel. I'm comparing 1 versus the final. I simply click compare. Same idea. So the kind of summary tab right off the bat, we see it's lining up our sheets because down below you can scroll to these various tabs and you can go straight to the tab that you care about. But if you're getting into spreadsheets with dozens of tabs, this is a nice view. You can just jump right to it. You don't have to scroll over to tab 7, 9, or 10 if you don't want to. Great, no changes here. Cool. You can still check it out if you want, but we know they're identical. Let's take a look at that service order fee table. There have been, and we see that those fee elements that were previously numbered have now been defined. Profit on labor, subcontractor handling, indirect rates. And we see changes to the fees themselves. 17% in that 6-month extension has gone up to 20% in this final version. And we see changes in the aggregated fees as well. 100%, 87%, 77% has become 93, 85, and 80. Boy, that's good to know. And it's all in one place. Let's jump over to that elements. The only change is there's a new site has been added, Lambert Field, Missouri, in the base year, in the option year, and in the extension. That's it. So not only do we care about the changes, but we can also sleep soundly knowing that we don't need to verify what hasn't changed. That's also really key, right? Excel, we can do the same thing we did earlier. Let's imagine this was a 300-row spreadsheet. We can drop in a filter. I see there's only been something added. The rest is identical. Let's take identical out of it. Boom. That's what's been added. And then I can toggle back. Excellent. One more quick thing, because my eyes just kind of crossed over it. As a former contracts guy, I can't help myself. I love the time and date stamp as well. Audit purposes. I've seen people use this for kind of negotiation, puts and take summaries, negotiation memos, things like that. Last example, it'll just be another Excel spreadsheet. We mentioned in the follow-up pricing tables as well as qualification or capabilities tables. Let's take a look at this document once again. So new set of spreadsheets that we're going to compare here. Case, this is more of a kind of a table format, in the technical and engineering domain. We're seeing capabilities, sections, qualification text here, number of credits. But man, I'm seeing a lot of tabs here. So lots of text, a lot of tabs. These credits affect our ability to win, right? What if there's been changes made to these? Changes to the qualification criteria, for instance. Same idea, enter, compare, Excel. I'm going to look at 8 versus 9. So 9 is my revision to 8. I've got them in the same folder. I simply click compare Excel. I'm going to compare 8 against 9. And I click compare. And so here, all of my tabs have changed. That's good to know. And a great example of 15 tabs. I can just go straight here. I don't have to scroll along the bottom. We'll just pick one for kicks. Let's go take a look at tab 4. And we see changes to the for the qualification criteria or text. Instead of greater than 10% QP value, it's now 10% level of effort. And you have to demonstrate that the surge requirements were actually requested by the customer. And if we were doing this the old-fashioned way, you would have to go to tab 4, go down to row 7, and then pick that up. Now it's right in front of me. Another great example here. Task orders are only considered competitive if 2 or more businesses submitted a proposal. We can't propose a task order where less than 2 submitted it. We'll get booted out. So, and then same idea. All across these tabs. So we still need to grapple with the changes, but now it's right in front of us. And we can take action. Excellent. So that is compare. The only difference between the two is the document type, Word and PDF for compare docs, Excel spreadsheets for compare Excel. But these are really straightforward features. They're features that when I'm training new users, I always generally start with compare. Upload the documents, click compare. It's a crowd favorite. It's a real quality of life improvement, but with business impact. We need to know what changes are being made to scope, requirements, timeline, price, qualifications, all that good stuff. And final thought, and I'll pause, we'll take a look at some Q&A. You know, we talked about maybe RFP docs today, statements of work, terms and condition sets, pricing tables, but this can be any document where revision. I work with the user, all they do is drop in purchase orders and they look for purchase order, or they compare purchase order revisions rather. So if you have a PDF, a Word, or an Excel spreadsheet, and there's been a change made to it, you can use compare docs or compare Excel. Excellent. So let's take a look at the Q&A. Excellent, Bethany. Great to see you. Thanks for joining. And nothing's ever an accident with me. That's why I use the Oasis Matrix. Appreciate you chiming in. Lori, yeah, actually, good question. And we have some time to talk about this. So the question is, can you demonstrate how you upload docs into VT? Perfectly valid question. You know, Kyle, great. We're looking at those examples, but gosh darn it, how did you get the docs into Visible Thread? Pretty straightforward. So I've selected this folder, and I know that because the wording is bolded and I get this nice purple bar to the left of it. And up at the top, we see this kind of document icon with an upward facing arrow. That's your Upload Documents button. You can give that a click. And now we see here, I'm going to click Add. And this takes me into my file structure, into my hard drive. I'm going to grab, and you know what? I'm going to grab both. So I just grabbed 2 documents. You could grab 10 documents if you want. Visible Thread is going to analyze them upon upload, just as we see here. Here, we're going to see checkboxes that say OK, and then we're off and running. And just as a reminder, this can be Word docs, PDF docs, or Excel spreadsheets. In our coming product update, we're actually going to give users the ability to drag and drop files into VT Docs. So that's coming, if you're deployed on the cloud, that's coming, within the week. If you're deployed on-prem, that'll be coming in Q1 of 2024. So same idea. It's just we want to give users the ability to drag and drop. We want to reduce some of that friction. And then once this is done, I'll just show you one other quick example, and that should answer the question. Because I realize I started with an existing folder, and I'll just quickly, for those who are less acquainted, I'll quickly show you how you can create a brand new folder. Keeping in mind that folders are just where we're grouping our documents. So there we go. Both documents are analyzed. We get our checks. We get our OKs. We can click close. And now we'll see that in my folder, there'll be 2 new documents added. And there we go. At the bottom of my folder, there are the 2 Word docs. Let's quickly talk about, you know, Kyle, I want to create my own brand new folder. You can create folders right here. And I'm going to call it webinar example. So I've got a brand new empty folder. They're listed alphabetically. And I'm prompted here to upload documents. You still have, oh my gosh, there's more. You can also, when in doubt, if you right click on a folder, you can also upload docs that way. Perfect. That should answer the question. Thank you, Lori. Keep them coming. Good questions, guys. Let's see, in the chat. How would this help in creating more compelling and persuasive proposals? I'd created a comparison document for OASIS plus Amendment 1V2. Took me 3 days to complete it. I hope that VT has an export function under compare docs. So right. So what you can do is if we're dealing with amendments to the RFP docs themselves, we want to do exactly what I just did right now. You know, take RFP Rev 1 or A, for instance, compare it against that amendment, Rev B, Rev 2. And then that export that I showed you, that's in Excel. So you absolutely can export it. So the report that we got is outside a visible thread. You can share that, you can send it to colleagues, you can send it to writers. So just understanding if there's any changes to requirements, whether those be in, you know, deliverables, types of services, to, you know, evaluation criteria. Whenever I'm thinking of a compelling winning proposal, I'm thinking of section M. Are there changes to the evaluation criteria, to how the volumes are being structured? That's important. The other thing to think about there is I've seen users run their own proposal drafts through Compare. You know, we've got draft 1, we've rewritten it, for instance, maybe coming out of Red Team for those who use color teams, you know, the Shipley model. We can quickly highlight what's changed. And that's more for kind of audit and reviews, right? So coming out of the Red Team, this was our feedback. Did we make those changes? Yes. So it's a good question, but always starting with requirements. And from there, we can also turn our guns, so to speak, on our own proposal documents. I don't want people just thinking comparison can be used on customer documents. It absolutely can. But we can also use them on our own. I'm full of customer stories, as Aoife knows. I'll leave you with a quick story, and then hopefully this answers the question. I work with a user group where they actually have internal policy documents, systems and procedures. And each time they're edited or amended, maybe it's annually, they run a comparison. They need to highlight and summarize those changes anyways. Use .compare. And yes, Bethany is one of my star pupils this year, a power user through and through. So always appreciate the feedback and the use there, Bethany. Good questions, guys. I'm having a blast now. Charles, does the system somehow keep track of who was looking at the document history? Okay, good question. Let's talk about logistics. So I want to draw a distinction between the visible thread outputs in report and the source documents themselves. So I'm going to share my screen quickly. This was a comparison that I ran earlier. We see a time and date stamp, but ultimately visible thread is simply taking the PDF version of the baseline, dropping it into column B, and it's taking the PDF version of that latest revision and dropping it into column E in this Excel workbook. Visible Thread has not altered or changed the source documents in any way. Now, if we have users and writers, and I know where the question is coming from, Charles. If we have writers that are contributing to Word documents, for instance, Visible Thread won't tell you, hey, Charles was in here last week and made this change. Aoife was in there yesterday and made this change. What you can do, though, is you can drop, as long as we're naming those document revisions where we can, understand it, Rev 1, Rev 2, Rev 3, you can drop them into VT Docs like I did earlier and run a comparison. But it's simply showing you what's changed across them. It's not kind of a workflow, who's been in there solution. So it's a good question. That's maybe a different function that's done outside of Visible Thread. But over time, within a folder, I've seen this done, for a specific pursuit. I've seen proposal Rev 1, proposal Rev 2, proposal Rev 3 uploaded in here, and then we can slice and dice it accordingly. Good. Excellent. Any other questions, guys? This is always my favorite part of these webinars. It looks like I don't see any new ones. Just to reiterate what Aoife was saying, for anyone who's registered, you will get a recording. So if people want to share this with their teams, please do. You'll get that recording. The more the merrier. You can forward it. If we want people to get a quick crash course in the comparison feature, VT University. We have a link in the slides that will go out. Just to be perfectly clear, that is free. You don't even need to have a VT Docs license to enroll, and you can jump. It's module based. You can go straight to the comparison module. It'll get you up to speed very quickly on how to use it. And then finally, Aoife, I'll pass the baton back to you. Cannot recommend enough for those who are here. If you are as entertained as I am giving these webinars, check out what's new in VT Docs 6.0. That's being hosted on Friday. I'm super excited as a user, as someone who's really used the product since 2017. This is probably the product update that I've been most excited about. And it's just really going to more power, updates to functionality. It's awesome. I'm excited. You should be too. Check it out. But thanks as always, guys. I know you're busy people. I know it's a busy time of year. Appreciate you joining. Aoife, back over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Kyle. So yeah, as Kyle mentioned, we do have a lot of great resources available to you, VT University, but we also have a fantastic customer success team who are there to help you at all stages of your customer lifecycle with us. So you can book a call with us, with our customer success managers at any time. There's a link on the slides, but also in the on the website. And they're there to help you get some quick wins to ensure that you're getting the most value out of Visible Thread. So as we mentioned, if you enjoyed today's webinar, here's a reminder of other events that we'll be hosting throughout the rest of the year and into the new year. And as always, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. We look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you.